Hey YouTube, it's Petey Two Finger. I just finished putting a Darkglass Bk3 bass preamp in this, which is my wife's bass preamp we built for her. So we fused it. It was lacking a fuse. It's got an input and an output power jack. This used to be a cable TV box, and now it's got a bypassable auto wah, which is a electro-harmonics baseball circuit. These two knobs are for the compressor, a Demeter compulator. This is a mix knob for this distortion. It's called the Darkglass Bk3. And this is a really modern sounding distortion, but it's versatile. Like you hear that kind of clicky bass on the detune and the gent music. That's this pedal. This is a very wildly popular pedal, but it's not a one-trick pony. It's very, you can like noon it, and it's just got this very pleasant kind of grunt to the bass. Think Billy Gould of Faith No More. Not that popping sound, but his kind of broken up, distorted. I watched an interview with Billy, and he said he had these PV bass stacks that were kind of cheap, and they broke up, they distorted when you cranked them, and he had to crank them to keep up with the band. And he said at first he really didn't like it, but then he got in when they got money and he tried other more powerful, bigger amps. He had to have that distortion of this cheap PV amps. And he said something about the Darkglass pedal. He said that was the first pedal that gave you that sound in a box. Even though he was using a tube screamer to push those PVs into the distortion. But I think what he meant was this Darkglass pedal will give you the sound, not the sound of the tube screamer, but the sound of the tube screamer and the PV combined. Now, I found it to be very versatile. It's got these switches on here for the attack, which is like kind of treble switches. My treble switches didn't seem to do much, but the grunt, the bass switches do. This unit, like I said, there's a buffer in here. There's a TLO72, which is the buffer from a Klon. The TLO72 is just an op amp. It's just your run-of-the-mill. It's not a fancy one. I could have put a fancy op amp in it, which would have meant it would have gobbled up the current. And this is a battery-operated unit. All of this stuff we built is for playing outdoors, so there's no outlet to plug in. You have to have a battery power supply for it. And we use these lithium-ion batteries, like what's in a Tesla, the 18650. Here's one here. That's what it looks like. They're like 4.2 and they're fully charged up. So yeah, it's got a Klon buffer. Then it goes to an Electro-Harmonics bass balls, which is an auto wah that's really tuned for bass. Then there is a compressor, which is just a two-knob affair. It's made by a company called Demeter, the Demeter Compulator. And I had tried the engineer's thumb, and I tried a few of the lower parts count DIY compressors, and none of them. I built a Dynacomp, and that's like I love the Dynacomp. You know, these other ones, they just didn't cut it for me. You know, I need a compressor that really compresses. Not just a little bit. Like the orange squeezer, no. I need a real, more powerful compressor. The distortion has a blend. That's a Darkglass Microtubes Bk3, and a clone of that, and which is a modern distortion. We're going to talk a real lot about that. And then there is the output stage has a master volume control and a Baxendal 2-band EQ with bass and treble. So the buffer is a line driver just to give you really clean signal, even if you have long cable runs. Then there's the auto wah, which you can shut off as an effect. The compressor balances the notes in between each other to keep everything so one isn't too loud and one isn't too quiet, ideally. The distortion, you can overdrive it and have lower settings where it just makes it sound cutting through the mix and going all the way up to actual noticeable distortion but it's pleasant bass guitar distortion, kind of that clicky modern bass sound you'll hear. So it's got a mix control, dirt or gain knob, and then a master volume. And then there's this, along with the grunt and attack switches, which is your high and low end EQ with switches. Now, the output stage with the master volume is very useful to have a bass and treble control there. In tone shaping, like with this distortion, cranking up that distortion all the way, but then reducing a little bit of that treble to take some of the fizz out of the distortion. So there's kind of different places you can do that, and different sounds you can get. You can get a half distorted sound or an overdriven sound along with the auto wah, which works really well. Kind of leave the compressor set where it's set at. Now, the battery pack comes up to 12.5 volts, which is fine. You know, most of these circuits are designed for 9 volts, but if you hit them with 12, you're just giving yourself a little bit more headroom. Now, some circuits, like if they're JFET and they're biased, they're made to run off of 9 volts. It's not smart to run them off of anything except for 9, what they were designed off of. So today we installed, like, basically the power comes up, goes to this fuse, goes to this switch, and then goes to this rail. So this rail here, this rail up here is just a strip with the positive and negative. Positive on one rail, negative on the other. And if you need power, you tap in with a pair of wires and then go to the circuit. So, yeah, we cut 2 circuits out of here. I had a DOD 250 distortion, and that had a mod where instead of clipping diodes to clip the signal, to distort it, use clipping LED. And this makes it, opens it up. It's louder, it's less distorted, and less compressed. It really sounds, I like that mod on the DOD 250 a lot. If you're not using it as a distortion, a high gain distortion, you can use it as an always on, kind of pick sensitive, give you that what's missing. Like if you have a solid state amp, this will tubify it for you, you know, and it's pick sensitive, and it works decent for bass. The B blend circuit, that's the mixer. See, a lot of times if you run your bass through a pedal and you turn the pedal on, your bass frequencies, your low end just disappears. So the idea is you build a mixer circuit with 2 channels, so you have your clean bass signal on one adjuster, and then your you know, you turn the knob one way and you get all clean bass. You turn the knob the other way and you get all distorted bass, so somewhere in between, and then you'll still have some of your clean signal. And they have these very simple, very low parts count circuits called a buff and blend, where it's just a single JFET. It's like under 15 parts, and it's real easy to build. And like somebody would go, hey dude, can you build that mixer into my bass pedal, into my distortion pedal for my bass? You go, oh yeah. Well, the problem that I ran into is the clean signal was weak and low, as the clean signal is, compared to the distorted signal was very powerful and loud. So the way you would have to set it up is to turn the master volume on the distortion all the way down, and then just boop. And same thing with how you ran that mix knob, and that wasn't going to work for me. So I got a much more beefy. It's called the B blender, and that's a quad op amp. So it's 4 operational amplifiers in 1 chip based mixer circuit. So yeah, if you're going to be playing around with adding blend controls, ultimately the paralooper is the way to go. Build yourself a paralooper. And that's a pedal with 4 quarter-inch jacks on it. So you have an in and an out, and then a loop, and then the controls. And it's basically the B blender. So yeah, we had that in here, and I just wasn't. I saw an interview with Billy Gould, and he was talking about his old PV amps, how they distorted, and how this Darkglass Bk3 micro tubes pedal just killed and gave him this really great distortion. So I watched the demo video for the pedal, and I really liked what I heard, and I thought if we could get something that sounded close to that, I would be thrilled. So that meant that I had to remove my B blender and my distortion, because this distortion circuit, as you can see, I used WEMA capacitors in there. This has the mixer built in on it. So yeah, I'm really happy with the Darkglass Microtubes Bk3 bass distortion. If you're a bass player, this is the pedal to have. I built it into this preamp, and then I typed in, is it okay to run the Bk3 on 12 volts rather than 9? And in the owner's manual, they tell you don't do it. I don't think you'll blow anything up, but it's not designed for it. They said if you run it at 18 volts, you will blow it up. So today it didn't have a fuse. I cut this fuse in it. Basically, the power comes out 12 volts, goes right to this fuse, into this switch, and then to this rail. So it's a strip with one positive strip and one negative. And each circuit, you just tie in a pair of wires off of that and get your power. So today I added a voltage regulator, a step down or buck chip circuit here. It cost about $1 and actually like 99 cents for this circuit. And it's got an adjuster, so you hook it up to a meter and you're 12 volts in. You turn the screw until you get your applied voltage, which in this case was 9.06 volts. So everything in here is running off of 12 volts except the Bk3. I really like the Baxandall EQ for tone shaping and the output. You can get some real great combo sounds, like distorting, overdriving the auto wah signal, you know. And when you use different effects, like when you turn on the auto wah, the way we run the bass is with the tone all the way down and then just cracked open. But when you're using this distortion as a distortion or the auto wah, you're going to open that tone up more. And sometimes, like with this auto wah or the distortion, you might lose a little low end. So this Baxandall, this EQ on the output stage is really handy. So this is like a Swiss Army knife preamp multi-effector that we built. It's all analog, and it does the job for what we need, because we basically use an auto wah sound. We have some overdrive sounds, and we have some distortion based sounds, and then some clean bass sounds. So this can keep our bass frequencies at the same level, whether or not we're using effect or not. But you have to play with the knobs on the bass, on the guitar itself, and you have to play with the knobs on the preamp. Basically, you don't mess with the amp, or we're just going through a PA. So the idea is you can do all that. She can do all that adjustment on her end. When she changes patches, she knows, okay, this song I'm turning on the auto wah, so I need to goose the bass frequency on the output EQ a little bit. So I mean, it's not a stomp box with presets type of idea. This is more hands-on, and it's more flexible. But yeah, somebody gave me this. It was a cable box, and I'm just really proud of this. I really am. I think this is. I wish I would have had this when I was playing bass. And the idea that you throw those 3 batteries in there and don't worry about it makes it even cooler. So yeah, we just finished the powered mixer that we like. When I installed this, I was nervous about installing it. I don't even know how many circuits were in this box before we settled on what we ran last year. So I was nervous about it. She couldn't tell, but I really was. And I cut the thing in today. We tested it on this amp, which is not what you want to test a bass on a 1.5-inch alarm clock speaker. So we ran it through we got a practice amp, which we won at a Victor Wooten bass clinic. It's a Hartke with a half aluminum cone speaker. She won. And it sounded really good on that, and then we put it on the PA. So she was playing along with the backing tracks, and this thing's awesome. The new PA powered mixer is more than, I think it's like 3 times the power. It's 600 watts is what it's rated at. The old one was 200 watts. And it runs off of 40 volts as opposed to 24. And there's a real mixer too. It's a considerable upgrade from what we were using. It was kind of a toy 12 volt plastic mixer. So yeah, with all these improvements, I am it's kind of bittersweet because I'm not going to be upgrading anymore. This is it, you know. I'm done. If anything dies, it's just going to get replaced. I won't be upgrading because I was doing that every fall when we would get done with the summer music season. I would think, well, what do you want to try? What do we want to build? And I would order parts and put them together. Springtime would come and we would go out again. And now that's like done. You know, this is it. No more. And I can't wait to try this stuff out and share this music with you guys. We've got new songs. We got a new microphone for the camcorder, so it's like audio stuff. I've got to kind of work the best situation out. What I hope to do is purchase a digital voice recorder. They have these, they look like a remote almost, and it has a little screen on it, and you can, like a dictaphone. And some of the nicer units have line-in audio recording at high wave file quality sound. So that gives me the idea of plugging one of those devices with a line in you can record off of into the mixing board. So when we would get back from the remote and I go to edit this stuff, I would have the video file with the live air audio, and then I would have a board mix. So ideally if I get one where I don't have to worry about pausing it all the time, or I don't know how it would work. Get one with a lot of memory. It might not end up being too big of a hassle. And I'm pretty good with editing stuff and figuring all that out. What it would mean is this device is going to cost me between $40 and $60, and I would like to get one. So that will improve the sound quality. It should improve it quite a bit. If I can get good, if this works well, and it should. I mean, it's coming off the board. And we could blend that in with the live sound and have a hybrid audio. So that's the final step in this puzzle. Thank you for joining me on this video and celebrating this project. I am super stoked and can't wait to do it again. These days when we do this music thing, it's kind of a lot of work the week coming up to it. We have to make lists. We have to go and get certain things like what are we going to eat and prepare that food in advance. We have a cooler with snacks. A lot of times I go to bed and I can't sleep the night before, so I'm up all night. We have the doorway of our place is piled up with bags and gigging equipment. So we'll load up the car, we'll have some breakfast, and we have to pick out clothes. We have to charge all of these batteries, lists, It's a mind-numbing amount of work. Then we drive over there, make sure no one's at the spot, and then we unload, set all the equipment up, do a sound check, sit down, have a little sandwich or pizza or whatever, and then it's time to start playing and start rolling. Now, last time we went out, it was like everything that can go wrong did go wrong. And now we're over that, and we have everything that went wrong last time has been fixed for the most part. I mean, I've got two backup MP3 units because we have played with drum tracks coming from eBay, and those have to be installed. There's still stuff to do, but and like I said, I'd love to get that line in thing going. But finishing this PA, getting the PA working, and then cutting in this fancy distortion box represented a big deal. So thank you for joining me, and I will see you soon. Hopefully with some excellent. We've got 3 new pieces of music you guys haven't heard yet. So that's what I have to offer, is bringing you 3 new songs from the remotes, and they should be good. So hold on to your hats, and peace.